Good afternoon. It is beyond a pleasure to be back with all of you. We open the 221st Convocation of Bowdoin College with an invocation offered by Oliver Goodrich, the director of the Rachel Lord Center for Religious and Spiritual Life. I ask if you're able to remain standing during the invocation and also in the singing of America the Beautiful, which will follow.
Class of 2026, you have arrived at Bowdoin College in the midst of a perplexing moment in human history. Each day, with each new push notification we receive, we witness the best and the worst of humankind. We marvel as the James Webb Space Telescope glimpses the birthplace of stars, while we grieve the loss of innocent school children in Uvalde. We find comfort in connecting with loved ones through social media, while we distance ourselves from those with whom we do not ideologically agree. We build increasingly complex computers that give us unparalleled access to information, while we struggle to combat the proliferation of disinformation. We move people and goods around the earth with relative speed and ease, while in doing so, we deplete the planet of its natural resources and resilience. How do we hold together these extremes? What does this moment ask of you? The poet Rainer Maria Rilke invites us to be patient toward all that is unresolved in our hearts, to love the apparent paradoxes of the present moment, and to live the questions. For when we live the questions, perhaps we will also live our way into worthy answers. As you begin your time at Bowdoin against the backdrop of so many questions, the world eagerly awaits the contributions that you will make and the people you will become. You have already demonstrated that you are students of uncommon promise and character. May your time at Bowdoin be a season of deep transformation that nurtures your capacity to live the questions. May the state of Maine, its woods, waters, and people, especially the Wabanaki who have long stewarded this land, inspire you and ground you as you grow. May you flourish as you find your place in this community, making new friends, joining clubs, falling into and out of love, and experiencing the joys of academic discovery. May you take the risk to make mistakes, whether in the lab or in the library, the studio or the sports field, and may you embrace the wisdom that failure so often offers us. And when you fail, may you do so with grace and compassion. And above all, may you cultivate the courage to not settle for easy answers, to speak out against injustice, and to live the questions. May these questions make a claim on you, calling forth all that is good in you for the sake of the common good. May it be so.
Thank you, Oliver. That was beautiful. I'd now like to invite our student singers, Ruth Alojabi, Sebastian Sanchez, David Jelinas, to the stage to sing America the Beautiful. And Brian Liu will be back on the piano. You'll find the words printed in the back of your program.
Spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America shed his grace on thee, and crown that good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet, with stern impassioned stress, our thoughts prefer for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law.
Good afternoon. Next spring, we will dedicate the new John and Lyle Gibbons Center for Arctic Studies, one of the 2 new buildings under construction behind Smith Union. Along with labs and classrooms, the building will also serve as the new home for our renowned Peary McMillan Arctic Museum. It will be exactly 70 years since the college's Board of Trustees began discussions on the possible creation of an Arctic museum at Bowdoin, and a long way from the initial museum room in the basement of Searles Science Building, where children loved to ride a musk ox, but where the displays themselves generally pleased no one. Bowdoin's interest and active role in Arctic exploration began in 1860 when Paul Chadbourne, a professor of chemistry and natural history, took 20 students from Bowdoin and Williams College to Labrador and Greenland to study the natural history of the region. In several subsequent voyages to the Arctic, interest in and disciplinary study of the North was firmly established at Bowdoin. But most certainly, Bowdoin's connection to and celebration of Arctic exploration was rooted in the work of 2 men, Robert Peary, the class of 1877, and Donald McMillan, the class of 1898. Peary's trip to the Arctic began in 1886 and continued to grow in size and ambition throughout the late 19th and 20th centuries. Part of Peary's success was his willingness to learn from Inuit, the indigenous people of northern Canada, parts of Greenland, and Alaska. He brilliantly combined American and Inuit technologies to allow him and his team to reach the northern destinations never previously achieved. General Thomas Hubbard, class of 1857, the individual who financed the construction of Hubbard Hall, completed in 1902, to serve as the college's library, and coincidentally, where he kept an apartment, was one of the people who provided Peary financial support. In 1909, Peary was an internationally recognized figure, and in the fall of that year, he announced that he, along with Matthew Henson, his talented African-American assistant, and 4 of the most talented Inuit hunters and dog sledge drivers, were the first people to reach the North Pole. Donald McMillan joined Peary's 1908-1909 North Pole expedition and returned to the Arctic repeatedly between 1910 and 1954, involving dozens of Bowdoin students in exploration, technological innovation, and humanitarian efforts. He named his schooner, designed to be frozen in the ice, after his alma mater. He taught at the college briefly and became a well-known public figure, lecturing throughout the country with films he had shot in the North. Eventually, many of Peary's and McMillan's collections of artifacts, photographs, and journals found their way to the college, and other people started donating Arctic-related materials to Bowdoin. In 1953, when the college decided to consider a designated space to boast of its important alumni, and showcase its artifacts, taxidermied animals, and photographs, the collection included the Hubbard sledge, one of 5 sledges used by Peary's team to reach the North Pole, as well as the logs, journals, and photographs of Robert Bartlett, a famous navigator in his own right and a member of Peary's 1809 expedition. It wasn't until 1964, when the new Hawthorne Longfellow Library was under construction, that directed and substantive conversations on an Arctic museum resumed, and the college's governing board, with the support of then-President Coles, voted to turn the main reading room in the library in Hubbard Hall into a museum focused on the Arctic. This is the space the museum occupies today. 3 years later, and 58 years since Peary's announcement that he had reached the North Pole, the museum was officially named for Peary and Donald McMillan. College documents starting in 1966 identify Ian White as the museum's initial designer and creator. White had a perfect combination of skills for the job. A museum professional, he had sailed the Arctic with Donald McMillan. White quickly set to work envisioning 3 distinct galleries, and when it came for the museum doors to open in 1967, Peary's daughter, Marie Peary Kuhn, President Coles, and Donald McMillan, then 93 years old, along with his wife Miriam, were present to cut the ribbon. Over time, the museum evolved, expanded its mission, programs, and curricular reach. This work has led to imaginative exhibitions, public programs, intentional workshops, and academic courses in which people learn to understand and appreciate the people, cultures, environment, and history of this northern place. One of only a handful of northern-focused museums in the world, the museum offers robust interdisciplinary scholarship while simultaneously making its exhibits available to the public and elementary school students in Maine. Additionally, the museum works collaboratively with northern indigenous groups to position centrally their voices and perspective in exhibits and provide their communities with access to Bowdoin's collections and resources. Today, Arctic issues are increasingly important throughout the world. Tensions over the commercial use of the now seasonally ice-free Arctic Ocean, effects of global warming on species, food security, and communities, technological and economic developments, and a growing recognition of identity politics among indigenous groups are just some of the many ways that are issues that are relevant and in need of scholarship and understanding. 70 years on from that musk ox in the basement of Searles, our college is well positioned to explore the complexity of the Arctic through cultural and environmental lenses, while also recognizing the geopolitical forces that are at play in the North. Through scholarship and educational efforts, the Gibbons Center, with new teaching and laboratory spaces and modern state-of-the-art galleries and support spaces for the museum, will showcase this important part of the world and what it means for understanding place, history, humanity, global environments, economics, and politics. Robert Peary and Matthew Henson, who are still showing up all over the world these days in the form of dolls created by the museum, will surely make their way back for the grand opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Found my place. As we officially open the academic year, it is our custom at Convocation to invite a member of our faculty to share insights into an important issue. Connie Chang is the director of our Environmental Studies program and professor of history and environmental studies. Her scholarship focuses primarily on the environment and social history in the American West in the 20th century. Her latest book, Nature Behind Barbed Wire, explores how the environment shaped the confinement of more than 110,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. This semester, she's looking forward to teaching 2 courses, Environment and Culture in North American History and Japanese American Incarceration, Removal, Redress, Remembrance. Professor Chang's talk this afternoon, Cultivating Our Common Natures, brings together these seemingly disparate topics. It's inspired by the 50th anniversary of our Environmental Studies program at Bowdoin, which we celebrate over the course of this academic year, and makes the case for adapting a more expansive and inclusive understanding of the environment and the people who are engaged in environmental work. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Connie Chang.
Thank you, President Rose, for your kind introduction and for the invitation to speak today. I'm humbled to address you, the class of 2026, and my esteemed colleagues. This year, Bowdoin celebrates the 50th anniversary of the Environmental Studies program. It has the distinction of being among the first ES programs in the country. I'm honored to serve as program director and to sustain the legacy of its founders, Sam Butcher, Chuck Huntington, John McKee, and several others who were committed to preparing students to address and face the environmental problems at the time. 50 years ago, the state of Maine's environment was grim. Rivers foaming with industrial waste and beaches covered with litter. Bowdoin's ES faculty determined that students were best equipped to address environmental problems by embracing an interdisciplinary course of study drawing from the arts, humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. This ethos continues to animate the program. As alumna Erica Berry recently explained, ES is, quote, the study of everything. It's an omnivorous discipline, end quote. Put another way, ES is where the liberal arts converge in their entirety. For all the expansiveness of environmental studies, however, it may seem surprising, even improbable, that a bespectacled Chinese-American woman from California, one of the most diverse states in the US, leads the ES program at a small college in Maine, one of the nation's least diverse states. I seem to have little in common with the founders of our program, all men, all white. When many people think of environmental studies, they envision affluent people who like to go backpacking or skiing, kayaking, or birding. That assumption reveals an extremely narrow, exclusive vision of the environment and the types of people who care about it. It is also a grossly inaccurate stereotype, both today and in the past. And yet, my ES colleagues and I are constantly fighting the perception that caring for or reveling in nature are luxuries for wealthy white Americans. Today, I want to press the case further for cultivating a broader and more inclusive idea of environment, one that offers paths towards a more equitable future. Along the way, I also hope to offer some thoughts about your own paths moving forward. So let me begin with my seemingly improbable path to this stage. I grew up in Walnut Creek, California, a suburb of San Francisco. My parents, both immigrants, were not really outdoorsy people, although my dad went fishing and rode horses during his college years in Kansas. I didn't grow up camping or hiking beyond a couple of Girl Scout trips, and I didn't regard my hometown as particularly scenic, with its ubiquitous strip malls tied together by ribbons of asphalt. My parents did take my brother and me on a national park road trip when I was 7. I wish I could say that this trip sparked my passion for the environment, but it didn't. I remember very little beyond the sulfurous smell of Old Faithful and Yellowstone and the endless hours listening to Peter, Paul, and Mary and Jim Croce on the tape deck as we drove along the dusty interstates of the American West. So where did my interest in the environment come from? Here's what I do remember. Picking the juiciest peaches from my mom's garden during the summer and slicing them on top of my cereal. Spending hours in my backyard practicing cartwheels, or imagining that I was riding in a covered wagon from the Little House on the Prairie books I adored. Filling brown paper bags with walnuts from the trees lining the concrete canals behind my neighborhood. Marveling at the majestic, gnarled live oak trees that dotted the nearby foothills, and watching the slopes turn from green to gold to green again with the seasons. I also remember when those same trees were eaten up by office parks and housing subdivisions over the course of my adolescence. It was the nature next door that offered joy and comfort as a kid, and it was its disappearance that troubled me and sparked my desire to do something to protect it. So I went to college thinking that there was nothing strange about someone like me studying the environment, and no one made me feel otherwise. But in retrospect, my environmental studies courses were full of mostly white classmates, and my professors introduced me to a mostly white cast of characters. Henry David Thoreau describing his terrifying climb up Mount Katahdin, John Muir extolling the beauty of the Sierra Nevada mountains, Rachel Carson raising alarms about the dangers of pesticides. Nonetheless, I devoured these authors and decided that I wanted to be an environmental historian so I could learn more about human interactions with the natural world. Starting in graduate school, I began to look for different people in the archives, and I found them. They didn't wax poetic about Walden Pond or the granite peaks of Yosemite, but they were still deeply connected to the nature around them. For instance, over this past summer, I read hundreds of pages of testimonies from Japanese Americans who spoke before the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians in 1981. This bipartisan federal commission investigated the incarceration of over 110,000 people of Japanese ancestry during World War II, one of the most egregious violations of civil liberties in U.S. history. At first glance, this episode seems to have little to do with nature. Yet many of the witnesses were farmers or the children of farmers who had cultivated land along the Pacific coast, sometimes for decades before the war. In their testimonies, they spoke of losing crops, land, equipment, plus years of sweat and toil. But they lost far more. In describing her Yakima Valley farming community in the days before removal, Kara Kondo noted, quote, "Diligently and lovingly, they tended the growing things. Perhaps deep down they were saying farewell to the land that nurtured them and the only life they knew," end quote. Once uprooted, the federal government forced Japanese Americans to live in desolate camps in the inland west in Arkansas, where dusty deserts and muddy swamps were shocking and disorienting. Thomas Hayase, imprisoned in Arizona, remembered, quote, "Things like the burned cinder-like hills all around, not one sprig of green anywhere, a pall of choking dust everywhere, and the scorching heat that never let up. It was the nearest place to hell," end quote. As I read these testimonies, it became evident that the environment served as an instrument for the federal government to assert power over Japanese Americans. But Japanese Americans did not see themselves as passive victims, and they even derived strength from their new environments, making hellish places habitable. At all the camps, they created stunning gardens that transformed their bleak desert prisons. As Suyako Shimizu remembered, quote, "When we entered camp, it was a barren desert. When we left the camp, it was green around the camp with vegetation, flowers, and also with artificial lakes," end quote. Beautifying their surroundings was an act of courage and resistance. So was testifying before the Federal Commission decades later. Japanese Americans' connections and responses to the environment compelled them to bear witness and demand restitution. Their desire for justice was inseparable from the environments that both nurtured them and oppressed them. Reflecting on my own and other people's environmental histories, then, suggests that my path here isn't that surprising or improbable after all. Why? Because the environment is not a passive backdrop for human lives. It's not someplace over there. It's all around us, an active force that has profoundly shaped us all, past and present, whether we realize it or not. The environment includes the majestic places like the national parks, but it also includes swimming pools and city parks, levees and reservoirs, vacant lots and roadside weeds, the air we breathe and the water we drink, and the lobster that you will eat in a few hours. For me, it also included my suburban backyard. For the Japanese Americans that I study, it included the farms and gardens that they tended both inside and outside barbed wire fences. These stories expand the definition of environment and the people who care about it. They also reveal our mutual values. Indeed, I've learned that I have something fundamental in common with the founders of Bowdoin's ES program and the Japanese Americans who demanded justice in 1981. We all want access to a clean, healthy, life-sustaining environment for ourselves, our fellow humans, and subsequent generations. For all our differences, we have a collective vision for a more just and sustainable future. We're all cultivating in our own ways our common natures. I certainly hope that all of you take an ES class during your time at Bowdoin. There are about 50 of you who are enrolled in our introductory ES 1101 class this fall, which I'm delighted to hear about. But even if you don't, I hope that my story is at least a little instructive. First and foremost, just as my presence here is not surprising or improbable, neither is yours. Even during your darkest moments of self-doubt, don't forget that you belong here. Second, your path through Bowdoin and beyond is not predetermined based on your background or other people's expectations. You have no set part to look or play. In my teaching and research, I strive to upend and complicate assumptions about what the environment includes and who has meaningful connections to it. I encourage you to do something similar during your time here. Defy expectations, challenge assumptions, and avoid putting them on other people, places, courses, and activities inside or outside the classroom. Explore a range of classes and majors, clubs and excursions. Talk to a variety of people on campus and off. Nurture your growing sense of self. Along the way, you may cultivate enduring connections with new ideas and people with whom you thought you had nothing in common. You may revel in our shared humanity, our common natures. Class of 2026, welcome to Bowdoin. I wish you much joy and fulfillment in the years to come. I'm grateful that our paths have crossed on such a momentous day. May you continue to forge rewarding and stimulating paths in all the directions they take you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Connie. That was fantastic. Let's another round of applause for Oliver D. Lohman, Professor Chang. I'd now like to invite Ari Geisler from the class of 23 and Brian Liu, class of 25, to the stage to perform today's musical interlude, Sergei Rachmaninoff's Sonata in G minor for cello and piano, Opus 19. That was simply wonderful, Brian. All right, thank you. So I was once a college student. That's my freshman year picture. In the fall of my sophomore year, I decided to take a philosophy course on Plato's Republic. There were maybe 25 students in the class, junior and senior philosophy majors, and first or second year graduate philosophy students. There was one sophomore, me. I had absolutely no business being in this class, and I struggled to keep up throughout the term, barely keeping my nose above the waterline throughout. The course was discussion-based, and a single final paper accounted for 100% of the grade. Toward the end of the term, we received the final paper question. I didn't just not know the answer to the answer, I didn't know the question, I didn't understand it. I spent days and nights thinking about it, how to get my head around it, getting nowhere, and I became, as you might imagine, super stressed about the whole thing, knowing that I was going to fail this class. I kept thinking about it, but nothing. And then one morning, it's a true story, while I was in the shower, something clicked. And I realized that I had the essential issues, or at least I thought I did. I literally threw my clothes on, I hurried over to Professor Wick's office, I waited for him to arrive. He asked me a few questions, and then he said, "I think you're on it." And 45 years later, I remember that time as if it were 45 minutes ago. And I'll come back to this in a minute. I loved college. I absolutely loved it. It changed my life. But as it all began for me, as it is beginning for all of you, in the way that life is often very weird, I was both not ready for college and so ready for college. I didn't know how to study properly. In high school, I'd gotten by on my limited wits and some natural gifts. I didn't understand or respect the expectations and the work in college and how it would be very different. And I looked around and I knew that I was overmatched by my peers. They had it all together and they knew a lot more than I did. Now, spoiler alert, not true, and everyone is thinking that. But I hope that sounds a little familiar to you. But I was also ready to learn, really thirsting to be in college, in the classroom, and getting after all those incredible courses and the journey ahead. I was ready to manage my life. My parents were great, they gave me tremendous freedom, but here at college, I was truly in charge and responsible, and I wanted to own it. I was ready to begin to find out who I really was and what I was capable of doing. And I hope that also sounds a bit familiar. As I said to our students on Saturday, college will be fun, exhilarating, filled with friendship, camaraderie. You'll take responsibility for yourselves, make your own decisions, work and play with an amazing group of students in an amazing group of faculty, staff, and alumni. It is the opportunity for a transformative and powerful education that will be with you for the rest of your life. And you have the gift of being a blank piece of paper, a clean slate that you can fill in any way that you want. College is a place to shed yourself of unwanted baggage, to be relieved of any of the burdens you may have from how you were known in high school, that you disliked or grew tired of, or that just don't seem to fit you anymore. You have the chance to learn about yourself and who you want to be and to change over time. Your friends, our faculty, our staff, they will embrace you for who you are and the journey that you are on, as long, of course, as you exhibit the core values of kindness and integrity, respect, grace for others, and responsibility for yourself. This is a very powerful gift. And this will be one of the few times in your life that you'll have the opportunity to start fresh and to paint on a blank canvas. Our faculty and staff represented here today are devoted to your academic and personal success and growth. Your teachers will challenge you and push you while they'll also support and mentor you. The staff will encourage you to take responsibility for yourself while at the same time helping you to think through the issues and managing through sticky situations. There will be work you will find incredibly difficult, mistakes you'll make academically and socially. You'll doubt yourself. You'll look at others from different backgrounds and you'll wonder, how am I going to create common ground? You may well suffer heartbreak and friendship and love, and you will wonder why you are the only one wondering these things. Please hear me. You are not. Far from it. This is an essential part of college for everyone and of the time that you will spend here. These day-to-day challenges, issues, and questions are all part of college, and dealing with them successfully in some cases, not so much in others, is part of what makes college so great, important, and deeply meaningful to so many of us for the rest of our lives. So do not wonder why every day is not the best. Don't wonder why you're the only one wondering. You're not. Do not please pay attention to the toxic fiction of social media that everyone else is living a life of rainbows and unicorns. And please, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. Do not deal with the challenges, the issues, the self-doubt, the anxiety all by yourself. We are a community. We have each other, and we have among the best resources here to help you on this journey. Now, why did I share my story of my class on Plato's Republic with you? 2 reasons. While I was clearly overmatched in that class, I have 0 regrets about taking it. I love to challenge myself, to try new things. I still do. College is a place for you not to play it safe, but to stretch yourself, to push yourself, to try new things inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Take risk, be creative, push your own boundaries. But, and here's the second reason I shared this story, do not do what I did. Do not go it alone. Ask for help. I was an idiot to not ask for help. It would have made me less stressful, think better, and learn more. And as I described a few minutes ago, and to all of our students on the quad on Saturday evening, there is a big net here. Another story, a final story from long ago. One night I was in the library writing a paper for a course that I've long forgotten. But I vividly remember sitting at a carrel working on the paper, trying to figure out how to get it right. And at that moment, the professor who lived in the dorm that I was in, who kind of looked after us all, was an older guy who'd fought in the Polish underground in World War II. Before he came to the US, joined the faculty. He was one of the leading scholars in medieval French literature and linguistics, a star at the school and in his field. He saw me, came over, he leaned over my carrel and he said, "Ah, Mr. Rose, you're writing a paper." I looked up and said, "Yes." And he said, "Writing is like giving birth to a hippopotamus." And off he went. And there it was, one of the great teachers on campus, and in a very funny and very kind way, he was telling me to go easy on myself, that writing is hard for everyone, that learning and college are hard for everyone. Bowdoin is a journey. It's one that starts now and it lasts the rest of your life. Pace yourself. Give yourself room to grow, to change your mind, to make mistakes. Seek help. Help others. Give yourself grace and give support to those around you who are doing the same. And if you do these things, these will be among the best 4 years of your life. Now, it is simply fantastic to be with all of you for the beginning of this academic year. I want to thank my faculty and staff colleagues for everything that you do for our students, for the college, for one another. Your work is what makes it possible for them to receive such a beautiful education and experience. I want to welcome back our returning students, and I am just simply delighted to welcome our new students, our 509 first-year students, our 8 transfer students. Today marks the start of a remarkable journey for each of you. And with that, I declare the college open. So a few public service announcements and then the end of the program. But following Convocation, I invite all of our faculty and staff to the lawn at Cleveland House to welcome our new faculty and staff colleagues. And for our students, at 5 o'clock, behind Farley Fieldhouse, is the annual lobster bake. I want to thank our musicians, Brian, Ari, our singers, Ruth, Sebastian, and David, for sharing their incredible talents with us this afternoon. I want to invite Brian and our singers back to the stage to lead us in the singing of our alma mater race songs to Bowdoin. Please remain at your seats until the processional has left the theater, and if you are able, please stand.
Praise songs to Bowdoin, praise her.